I thought it pertinent to elaborate a bit more on what we mean by sacrifice and blood offerings. Because when we just say these terms or words within a conversation or in comments, for instance, it can bring some pretty sinister things to mind. And it's not quite as sinister as a lot of people think. So let's have a closer look at that. Just a quick announcement before I start the video. If you go to my Etsy store, there's a series of candle lighting services there. I have them on 25% discount until the 15th of January if you would like to take advantage of that. Head over to my Etsy store. You'll find the link in the description. Just have a look for my Linktree link. And you'll find the Etsy store in there, and yeah, go over, take advantage of that. Alright, so sacrifices and blood offerings and blood magic in general, really. When we talk about blood offerings and sacrifice, you know, a lot of times what comes to mind is sacrificing an animal for the pleasure of a deity, to make an offering to that deity in that fashion. But in this day and age, that's not really done. In some traditions and cultures and religions, it is still practiced. Voodoo, for instance, it's still practiced. A lot of African traditions, it is still practiced to this day. But in those cases, they are traditions which are old. And in those countries, they are allowed. But me, for instance, I'm not part of those traditions or religions and not part of those people. And therefore, if I were to sacrifice a cow or a goat or something like that, I'd probably be arrested. It is unlawful. But it's also not necessary. When I say not necessary, I'm not referring to those religions and traditions and cultures that it is a necessary part of. In my own practice, in this modern practice, let's put it that way, it's not necessary to sacrifice an animal. It's definitely not necessary to sacrifice a human being, and definitely not advisable. In fact, it's incredibly frowned upon. It's just stupid to even think of, really. So when we talk about blood offerings, what we're talking about is offering blood from yourself. And in a fashion, this is also a sacrifice. I'll get a bit more in depth into sacrifice just now. But when we're talking about bloodletting, especially in demonolatry, in demonolatry it's considered to be a standard practice. In a lot of other traditions, it's not. In a lot of witchcraft, you can give blood offerings to the deities, but it's not one of those things that are required, and it's not even required in demonolatry unless you start practicing some of the more advanced rites and things, and you know, it's not really even necessary in those, although it is considered by many demonolators to be sacrilege if you do not offer blood to the demons in those rites, and those are very advanced rites. But generally, you know, you don't have to offer blood to the demons. And in some cases, the demons don't even they don't like blood. They prefer something else. Maybe it's sexual fluids, orgasm, maybe it's an apple, maybe it's a nice meal or a glass of wine or a glass of whiskey or something like that. There are lots of things you can offer to the demons and the deities, but in demonolatry, blood is one of the standard things. So the blood comes from yourself, it does not come from any other source. To sacrifice an animal doesn't give the same energy and the same power, in my understanding. It is said that if you sacrifice an animal, the pain and the terror and the fear that that animal goes through generates a particular energy which is given to the spirit, the deity. In my experience, I haven't sacrificed animals, but from the conversations I've had with particular demons, it's not something they want, because it doesn't come from you. The energy comes from another source, and when we're working with the demons, they want to work with you directly. They don't want the energy from a different source to actually be used in those rites. But if you're offering food and drink and things like that, that's more of a general offering. And there are ways you can offer that by, for instance, eating the meal, and as you're eating it, you're savoring all of the tastes and the textures and everything else, and thinking of the demon at the same time. And the experience itself generates energy and generates that offering. If you just take a piece of food, like a piece of bread or something, you put it down on the altar and say, there you go, it's not really the same type of thing as an offering. So when you are giving offerings to deities and demons, just consider how it's being offered and if that energy is being transferred and related in the way it should be. Otherwise, you can sit down and eat your meal every night and not think about the demons and deities, and they would be feeding off that, which they don't. So, there's a certain manner in which you would go about giving an offering. But when it comes to offering of blood, there is a certain discomfort and a certain amount of pain that's involved in that process. You usually just prick your finger with a lancet, a diabetic lancet. You don't need to slash your hand open or anything like that. It's just a prick. But there is still pain involved, there's still discomfort involved, and a lot of people don't like seeing their own blood. But there is that pain and that discomfort, and that's the offering that gets made, and it is partly a sacrifice. Sacrifice is something you do which can cause some discomfort, or it takes you out of your comfort zone. It could be an offering of time that you give up. So your sacrifice is something you give up, and you can give that up for a certain period of time, or you can give it up for a lifetime. So for instance, if you are a coffeeholic like me, then you may agree to give up or stop drinking coffee for a week or something, and that will cause discomfort. If you are a smoker, you may offer a sacrifice of giving up smoking for a day. That's going to cause discomfort. It's going to take something away from you. So this is where the sacrifice comes in. But as I say, when we mention sacrifice, people think of human sacrifice and animal sacrifice and killing things. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about sacrifice. So as I say, when we're talking about sacrifice, we are not talking about any of that. We are talking about giving something up. And it's always giving something up from you, from yourself. So that could be taking time out of your busy schedule to help with a charity or work in a soup kitchen or something like that. But you're giving up that time. You're a busy person, and giving up that time does affect you in some way. It could be, as I say, giving up smoking for a day or a lifetime. If you want to give up smoking for the rest of your life, that's not a bad thing. I'm doing it myself. It could be giving up coffee. It could be giving up chocolate. It could be giving up something that is not easy for you to do, and that becomes a sacrifice. But when it comes to bloodletting, that's an offering which is quite powerful. One, because it's your blood, that's your life, it's life source, it's what pumps through your veins and keeps you going. So apart from that, it's also the discomfort and the pain that it causes. If you're willing to go through that discomfort and pain in order to offer something to a spirit, to a deity, to a demon, then it is considered to be a powerful offering. But when it comes to blood magic itself, blood is powerful. It is your life force. It's your DNA. It's connected to you intimately. But you don't need to use blood for any kind of spell work or magic that involves that type of thing. You can also use hair cuttings and nail clippings, for instance. That's also part of your DNA. Although nail clippings and hair cuttings are actually dead cells. So this is why you might want to consider rather using blood in such spell work and such rites and rituals, because that is life. It's living, and it's considered to be very powerful. But at the same time, you can use semen and sexual fluids. There's a lot of different things that can be used in the same manner. But at the same time, when we're talking about using blood in spell work and actually doing blood magic, there is a particular taboo connected with that. And there's also a taboo connected with sex. But when it comes to using blood magic, in a lot of people's minds, that taboo is a lot stronger. And by doing that work, there's a certain energy which is created from breaking a taboo. So, there's all these elements that come into it in order to generate more energy. Not just the energy from your blood and the connection it has to your DNA and to your person, but also the energy which is generated from the breaking of a taboo. If you consider blood magic to not be taboo, it's not going to have the same effect. And this is why a lot of people will turn to blood magic, because of the taboo and the energy that it can generate from breaking that. It's edgy. If something's edgy, it's usually taboo. So, yeah, you have that. There's also the use of menstrual blood for women, and especially at particular times of the month with the moon phases in conjunction with the cycle and the actual menstrual cycle. Those times can be incredibly powerful, and it's connected very much to the goddess and the power of the goddess. So, if you are not using menstrual blood in your magic, you might want to look into that. I know a lot of people consider it to be iffy, but it's part of you. It's natural. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think it's only our society which has created this idea that it's wrong and it's disgusting, but it's not. It's beautiful. It's natural. So you might want to consider using menstrual blood if you're a woman. And again, there's a certain amount of pain that is involved with that. And at that time, there's an energy which is generated that is itself very powerful. And, menstrual blood and blood magic itself has been used in witchcraft for centuries. But as I say, just to recap and put this into a nutshell, bloodletting is not about giving blood from any other source but yourself. And when you're doing this, you only need a pinprick. If you feel like you need to make a bit more of an offering or a sacrifice and you want to use blood, you might want to actually use a razor blade or something and actually cut yourself. But be very, very careful when you do this. If you are cutting in your hand, in your palm, for instance, you could end up cutting tendons and muscles which you need in order for you to actually grip. Anywhere else in the body, be careful where you're actually cutting, please. Make sure you know what you're doing before you're doing something like that. This is why it's advised and why I recommend just getting a diabetic lancet and just pricking your finger. And it's usually better to sort of prick on the side rather than in the middle. You do tend to get a bit more flow. and it's easier to actually squeeze. But yeah, just use a pinprick. Don't go and start slashing your hands open. You're going to end up with scars. I know I did one, no, it was a few months back. Just trying to check if I've still got the scar. No, okay, the scar seems to have disappeared. But I actually cut the top of my hand over here, and I had a scar for months. And I have one, over here. You probably can't see it. I actually cut my arm here to do bloodletting, and that was years ago, and I've still got the scar. So if you're going to start cutting your arm in all different places, you're going to end up with scars all over the place. Don't really want that. So as I say, just a pinprick is all you need. If you have a scab where you've cut yourself recently, you can use that to actually let some blood and offer that. It's quite painful to pull off a scab, so you've got the pain, you've got the discomfort, and you are offering your blood, so you can use that. But otherwise, no, that wasn't really a nutshell now, was it? So let's try and put it in a nutshell again. All right, so if you are giving a blood offering, you are doing a bloodletting, you are just going to prick your finger and offer it, and that's it. Okay? You are not going to be killing anybody or anything. There's no killing involved at all. Just to be clear, no killing, right? And the only source that it should come from is yourself. If you are giving a sacrifice, it is giving up something of yourself which is not easy to give up. And it causes discomfort. Whether that be time, whether it be an addiction, you can give up a bad habit. Giving up a bad habit is going to cause discomfort for a period of time. You can give up something for a period of time or for a lifetime. Remember that. That sacrifice could be for a day, a week, a month, a year, or a lifetime. Depends on what it is and what you want to do. If you are giving a sacrifice and you're making an oath to a deity, you have to make sure that you can follow through with what you're doing. If you offer to give an orgy and you can't organize an orgy, you're going to break the oath or the bond, or you're not going to be able to follow through with that sacrifice. So don't do things you can't finish. So if you're offering, or your sacrifice is to give up smoking for the rest of your life and you can't do that, don't promise it. If it's to give up for a day and create that discomfort for a day, and you can do that, then that's fine. But if you go and offer it for a lifetime and you can't follow through, you're going to end up with problems. They're not going to come after you and beat you on the head or send you to hell or anything stupid like that, but there will be disappointment involved and trust will be broken. So you don't want to, in demonolatry we create relationships with the demons, and that's the same type of relationship you would create with anybody. There is trust involved. There is a trust that builds and generates over time, and if you break that trust is broken, and you don't want to do that. So, make sure that when you're offering and giving sacrifices, you can follow through with everything you say you're going to do. All right, and that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.